Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Can y'all hear me? There we go. There we go. Welcome to another Tuesday night at 9. Prototype Dad live again. How y'all feeling? How y'all doing today?
Feeling good.
Man, all day, right? We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Mo. Let me go ahead and unmute. There you go. What's up? Hit me,
What's cracking, B?
man. Another Tuesday, right? It seems like these days go faster and faster every time. Like, I guess because we do it week in, week out, so like not a time like kind of elapses. But yeah, man. Today, man, we're here to talk about fear and the things we go through and how we handle our fears and things we even fear. I know there's this facade or a layer of media out there that likes to say that men don't show emotions and we're not afraid of anything and we're just as human as anybody else, and we deal with some real things, and people might not know or understand what things we might think about or fear. So I kind of want to get that out there, to get a sense of, hey, you're not alone, and if women are listening, like these are some things we think about and we have some real concerns about. So we got some other guests, logging in a little later, but we got who we got. Let me introduce Dr. Harrison Davis.
Hello, hello. I'm drinking my coffee.
Oh man, well, I'm on whiskey, and I'm sure Leafer's on bourbon, and I think the other two won't be sober for this one.
Okay, I'll be sober.
I don't know if you want to go ahead and run down your credentials or anything, or introduce yourself. If you have any special things you want to say about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Quickly. So I am Dr. Harrison Davis, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I have been practicing since, 1998. I'm aging myself for just a little bit, but I have a
practice on that one.
I spent 18 years as a professor of counseling at the University of North Georgia. Recently transitioned into a new position as a chief diversity officer at Life University, but I still practice. And the bulk of my clientele happen to be Black men. And also, I am the host of a podcast radio show, Two Therapists and a Microphone, with Dr. Aisha Dickerson.
Shout out to Miss Dickerson, good friend of mine. So let's jump into the first question until some other people decide to jump on, but we could hop on the first one. You know how we do. We kind of just ask the question and then give everybody gives their perspective on it, and we'll kind of go around like that.
Sure.
All right.
Gotcha.
All right. So what are your fears of relationships or commitment? So I don't want to just make it about relationship with women, but it could be. Speak on it. Even friendships. I got some things to say about that and how we do that kind of stuff. And commitments, even with things you got to commit yourself to in tasks. Who wants to go first?
Well, if I could just add to that, we're talking about, you used the term fear. I use the term anxiety quite a bit. This concern, worry, sometimes is overwhelming, but it is quite normal, to have some concerns, about yourself, about life. And men certainly have some anxieties that are out there. So I don't know if I would put it at the category, the intensity level of fear. But as far as relationships, there are men, I don't know if they fear relationships. They fear that they may be inadequate, within relationships. Sometimes what I hear from some of my clients is that they fear sometimes what their partner or their friend may think of them, the perception that others have of them, and it may not match their self-perception of who they are, and it may crush that image that they have of themselves. But there's certainly nothing wrong with having worries, and concerns. It's when you don't address them, when those concerns become out of balance and a little bit overwhelming.
Anybody else want to spin?
Yeah, I want to so I touch a couple. So you kind of mentioned a few different relationships. I think first and foremost, like the relationship that I have with my children, my biggest fear is that they're going to look at me how I look at my father. You know, and obviously it's not in a positive manner. But I want to just make sure that what I'm saying, I'm somebody they can count on, and then just different things in general. But that's like my biggest fear. And the second with that is like that I'm not able to provide, what I'm saying, what they need, from a mental standpoint, and a financial standpoint, you know what I'm saying? So that was that with the children. And the relationship wise, just like what the doctor said, you always have that fear. It's like it's always in the back of your head as a man, like, are you enough? You know what I'm saying? Do you have enough? Can you provide enough? Because I think our biggest fears as men, like for me, is just like, what I'm saying, am I living up to that standard, you know what I mean, of a man and what a prototype dad or a man is. So there's a couple fears for me.
I think I'll go ahead and hop in one because I got one on the tip of my tongue that I really just experienced. But it's kind of who I am, right? So when I go into different cultures, I have a fear of I'm real standoffish. So I'm not real accepting of being around a bunch of people that I don't necessarily understand or may not understand me. And it's not even a race thing because I think it's a level thing, but it could be a race thing. That could be one of the things that hinder it. So like just recently, I was at a I was at a game. We were tailgating, and there were some Latinos that were like barbecuing, and they were like, "Hey, come over, get some ribs." Or what is it? I don't eat ribs, but I'm just looking at this group like I'll stand over here and watch. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to like kind of integrate. Really, it was really just let me just see what's going on first, and it's a fear of knowing who's genuine and who's not. You know what I mean? Like when I'm outside of my environment, I don't know. I really fear who's there to help, who's being genuine and nice. So much stuff goes around nowadays where you just don't understand what people's motives are. So I have a fear with that. I also have a fear, even in my career of like you said, not being enough. Because nobody in my career field is of my culture. And like I said, and it's not a race thing there either, because the people that's black in my field, they're not like me. They don't come from the same environment like me or the same culture like me. So I already know like how are they looking at me. I kind of get a clue on how they're looking at me, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if I could say this or that or just be charismatically who I am. You know what I mean? So there's also a fear, anxiety of that.
Sounds like you don't know who to trust, and that causes a little anxiety.
Absolutely. I mean, because you just don't go off trusting anybody, right off the top. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You got to kind of watch the scene, see who's cool, that kind of deal. So that's like, how I deal with like my fears in business. And you want to be open to certain people, but you like, I don't know if I should say this to you. You know what I mean? Because you don't know how they're going to take it, what they're going to do with it, how they're going to relate to it, how they're going to view you. You know what I mean? So I definitely have that kind of situation when it comes to like new environments and even work culture. As far as commitment, I don't fear commitment. I do fear the discipline to stay committed, though. Like I'm always for, hey, whatever's going to make me better. But I always fear, am I going to drop this ball? You know what I mean? Like I don't want to fumble the rock, and it's very real that you might fumble, and that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, if I can add something in that, I haven't heard from any guys that they fear the commitment. They may not know how to commit to a relationship. They may be concerned that they're going to disappoint their partner, and that sometimes is couched as fear of commitment. you know. But there are a bunch of guys out there, let me tell you, they don't have any concerns or fears about relationships at all. You know, they're not investing their personal time and energy into it, you know. So not every guy is concerned about that, but those who are responsible sometimes review themselves and wonder, am I up for this job, you know, as a committed boyfriend or fiance or husband. Sometimes that is a concern that I've heard from a lot of guys.
Or
They
even
don't
a
know.
father, even from a father standpoint, because I mean that's
Absolutely.
kind of what we focus on here is how to be better dads. So even from a father standpoint, is that fear of being a dad and being committed. Am I going to be here through this whole 18 years and beyond?
And
Right?
imagine
Like,
if your dad wasn't there when you were growing up as a kid, or it was a poor example of a healthy father figure. And now, as an adult, you're trying to fill this role, and we're not quite sure, you know, what's the blueprint? What's the model? And so many guys simply fall into doing what they saw, whether they liked it or not, you know, and then that's when some relationship problems occur, whether it's with the kids, family members, co-workers, or a spouse.
I want to go ahead and add Big Hand. What's going on, Hand? Henry's a good friend of mine, man. He's probably one of my first friends I've had since I moved to Georgia, and we've been tight ever since, man. And we started out as co-workers, and I'll let him tell his story on where he's came. But yeah, the first question we're attacking is fear of relationships, fear of commitment, and how you feel about that topic. We got a couple other people that haven't spoke yet, but you're welcome to jump in if you're ready.
Experience and the experiences of others. I know in relationships, there definitely can be a fear of commitment, particularly in this day and age where the choices seem endless. A lot of people fear that there's always something better, and they fear that that they might end up with, you know, less than what they think they can achieve. And, you know, I know a lot of people like that, whether they like to admit it or not. So online dating kind of helps perpetuate that sort of thing. But even once you get into a relationship, there are a lot of fears too, as far as just fear of always showing up and doing the right thing, or fear that the other person isn't, or that the other person is in it for ulterior motives or for the wrong thing, and just making sure that, you know, you guys can keep that same bond and not let the outside world come in and destroy it. So.
Anybody else want to chime in?
I think that's, for me, that scenario hits home. So post divorce, right? Like, and I've been trying to like soul search and understand, like, I love to chase, but as soon as they say come and get me, I'll go back to Indeed. I'm going back and I'm resume scrolling again. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm running, you know what I mean? And it's because, like, I was like, damn, why do I keep doing this? And it's because, like, I feel like I don't want to make the same mistake, but I feel like this is probably something better. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm almost looking for something like, nah, she don't got this, or they got this, or they ain't got that. I could do better. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's out of fear, or if that come from, you know what I'm saying, like a place from being hurt somewhere. You know what I mean? Like a trauma.
I was just thinking that same thing when you said that, you know, just to go a little bit deeper, you know, sometimes the fear is that she is not going to like me for who I am. Once I reveal myself to her, after we spend some more time together, we date continuously for months, and we spending day-to-day time together, and she gets to see me for who I really am, not that cool guy with the swag that she met at the bar, you know, or online with that picture that may be 3 or 4 years old, you know, and you show up. Sometimes there are guys who are insecure about who they are, and they cannot continue with that representative that shows up. And there are some guys, they like that beginning stages of a dating process. That's all they like. You know, they don't want anyone to depend on them. They don't want anyone to ask them for anything. They're just there for fun. And so a lot of things contribute to that and not moving forward in a relationship. I tend to think sometimes it's some on a deeper level, unconscious, some insecurity about what would she really think if she really knew me, if she sees me every day and she recognizes my fears, my insecurities, and that means you're vulnerable. And a lot of guys don't like that at all. So I hope I didn't hit a nerve with anybody.
No, the vulnerable thing. I'm gonna let some other guys chime in, but the vulnerable thing is one thing that now, like this panel here, right? Like generally, anybody on the panel I know I have a relationship with. I don't mind being vulnerable with anybody that I'm close with. You know what I mean? Like everybody here knows my vulnerability points at some point. You know what I mean? And it's comfortable to be vulnerable with your circle, and that's
They
what
see
makes your
you.
circle your circle.
Yeah, they
You know
see
what I
you for
mean?
who you are,
Yeah,
and you're
it's the
comfortable
good
with
and
that.
bad, what I could be and what at either end of the stick.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I'm not gonna hog it up. I want everybody else to kind of chime in. If they have anything on relationships and commitment, and we're not necessarily talking about relationships, commitment with a woman, but anything.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have any like issues or hangups with relationships or commitment when it comes to, like women. Like my biggest hangups with commitment are like when it comes to um, dealing with certain things in my church or, being actively engaged in certain things in the community, like having to commit specific amounts of time week in and week out. Like that is like, man, it's difficult for me to commit that time to be able to, to do the stuff that I want to do in my head. Like I'm like, I need to do this. I need to get more involved in this way. I need to do more of this. And just, first and foremost, I'm an introvert. So being around a bunch of new people on a regular basis is like it spirits up so much anxiety. It just drives me nuts. So I don't really like to put myself in that arena if I don't have to. But the moment, you know what I mean? Like I'll be sitting back all the time thinking like, man, I just need to plug in. I need to get in more. I need to do more. And then I go to church on Sunday and then everybody's like, hey, we missed you. We didn't see you the last couple Sundays. Oh, when are you going to join this? When are you going to help with that? When are you going to? And I'm like, my head is like about to explode. And I'm like, we got to leave. We got to get the heck out of here, man. There's too many people talking to me. So, that's where all of my stuff comes. Like just being committed to the stuff that I really want to get into, or I feel like I need to get into, and I can really help and contribute. But just that fear and anxiety of having to engage with a bunch of different new people on a regular basis is like sometimes it's just too much for me.
One thing I've noticed, throughout my life is that men, especially, black men, they struggle with the fear of humiliation. And that's why we, dress a certain way. We're all very prideful. We all, do certain things to not get called out and to not, draw attention to ourselves. It's the fear of humiliation. But I found, along the way, especially recently, that, once you shed that fear, you become untouchable. My struggle, it was crazy because the first 10 minutes I had a fear of even going. But what I've been struggling with is a fear of committing to myself. There are all these people, who think I'm, such a, a great person. And then there are a lot of people who already have their opinions of me and their thoughts of me. And, that doesn't really matter. But, I found comfort in relishing, for a lot of these years as an underachiever. My some people set the bar really low for me and I was okay with that. And, I'd be able to pick and choose what areas I can excel in. And then it comes as a surprise to people. They're like, whoa. So, if you're not expecting me to be a 10 at all times, if you're expecting a 6, and I hit you with 9s and 10s, it's comforting. But my fear that I've been struggling with is being consistent and committing to myself, knowing the man that I can be, knowing the man that I'm supposed to be, knowing the man that I'm capable of being. And I don't know.
What's stopping you from doing that? You sound like you have a clear vision of who you are meant to be, but what's stopping you from taking those steps to be that?
That's what the fear is. That's where it comes in. I've been,
I heard you talk about expectations.
absolutely. And, I expected to be further along in life by now. But, like I said, I made decisions that altered my path.
We all
And
have.
I was okay with being, for a very long time, okay with being, below the level that people expected me to be. So that when,
Yeah.
I was able to excel or shine in certain
You'd
areas.
like to surprise them
Yeah.
by doing extremely well because of that low bar, low expectation, but when the high expectations are there, what happens to you?
I mean,
When they
when I'm
refuse
called on to perform, like that's my thing. I like to say is I'm good under pressure. You know what I'm saying? That's I relish in the fact that I'm comfortable being under pressure.
Gotcha.
I'm good out in front. You know what I'm saying? But it comes down to a commitment to myself to being
The best you can
consistent
be.
every day.
Yeah.
And that's where I fall short.
Yeah, I hear that from you.
I don't know what the block is, but it's something I've been actively working on, especially now, like the past, 2 years, for the most part. I've been trying to break through this barrier. And to be honest with you, it's been a lot harder than I thought. I thought I could just turn it on. But, when you practice something a certain way for so long,
you get used to it.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, and I'm just throwing out a theory, if there's a component of that about control and you controlling the expectations that people placed on you so that you don't get overwhelmed when they're all high, and you can surprise them, like I mentioned before, as opposed to disappointing them when they're all expecting you to do well every time. It's just a theory based on what you just threw out there, and I can be completely wrong with that.
No, you're not. You're right in the ballpark. I never even thought of it that way. And as far as control, but I do like
controlling your own narrative, because a lot of us don't have the capability to do that, depending on the circles we're in. But I'm hearing from you that perhaps early on in your life, you learn to control that so that you can outperform when you want to, not when other people want you to. But I could be completely wrong about that.
And that's the thing. Like I know that there's weakness in that. I've recognized the flaws. I've experienced that. I've lived like that for so long. Like there's
at some point that doesn't benefit you.
It had, I've been smacked in the face with reality, recently, and for the past decade, I was able to hide that narrative.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And it's basically like I was hiding in general.
Flying under the radar. That's the first thing I was thinking, so that no one can notice you and expect more of you. But as I mentioned, growing up as an adult, for all of us and responsibilities, I don't know how that's going to help you at this stage in your life.
It hasn't. It's actually hurting me. It's been a detriment.
Yeah,
and
I can
it's been
see
something that I have had to actively, forcefully change.
I can see. I can see that. Yeah, that's not going to help you. I'm thinking even in relationships, what we're talking about, like with a romantic sexual partner, and you guys may have kids or something like that, responsibilities, and then you're creating this narrative that don't expect too much from me, or keep your expectations low, but then you can always surprise them and fall right back you know, to an area that you like. So you're believing in the past, perhaps it worked for you, but I don't know how that's going to help you to be who you were meant to be honest with you.
I mean, you're right, absolutely right. Yeah.
All right, let's jump into the next question, right? So the fear of rejection and how we deal with that. I know me personally, I've dealt with the fear, I kind of touched on it, the fear, those kind of fears, but in my career, but I know I've learned how to deal with it by like facing rejection head on, and not caring about it, and just having comfort in there's so many more opportunities out there. You know what I mean? Like, so like I know there's more opportunities. This is not my only one. And I can keep swinging as many times as the ball's going to be pitched. So,
So
how do you guys deal with your fear of rejection if you have any?
Yeah.
Yo, let me. Hey, can I second? I want to real quick. My bad. I want to second that. Because Vic, and in his single days, you know what I'm saying? I once seen this guy. This is no lie. In the club, holler at 55 women in a row. You know what I'm saying? Like nonstop. You're like that? No. Okay. No. You know what I'm saying? Son, no fear. No fear of rejection. Like, you know what I'm saying? Straight animal, dog. So I had to second that. My bad to share that. Go ahead, Henry.
Yeah. What's going on, Sean? I didn't even recognize you. But so yeah, Kev, how do you like, I guess, for someone who has a fear of rejection, what kind of advice do you give them to overcome that? Or like, was there a time in your life where you did fear rejection, and what steps did you take to get
there was a time I did fear rejection, and like it was swinging at the next pitch. You know what I mean? Like hit me sad is 55 in a row. You know what I mean? Like there's been times where in my younger days where like
you gonna hit one.
Somebody got like me. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I always felt about the situation. I know I'm not the worst of it. Somebody like me, so I'm gonna try them all until somebody say yes. That's just kind of my thing. So I don't, and I think that's helped me in anything. You know what I'm saying? Like once you get comfortable with that, man, you can talk to anybody. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily have a fear of rejection now, but that's kind of, I know a lot of guys do have a fear of rejection and don't necessarily like it. Yeah, they don't attack it and they respond the wrong way. And how do other people? How would you guys suggest to respond to that? Because I know I respond with knowing that there's more out there, so I'm gonna just keep going. You know what I'm saying? And if I could try a whole pond, I'm just gonna swim in, go find the next pond and go swim in that for a minute and see what fish I can catch there. So, but that's not what everybody does. That's what I do. What do you guys do? Because everybody don't swing like I do.
So let me jump in, man. So I hate I'm having technical difficulties because, man, I had a whole lot of stuff to say from the previous one. I was actually taking notes while you guys were talking. And a lot of it kind of hit home. And a lot of it, man, I realized that I've just kind of always been a little different in my mindset. Maybe just because I've always been around older people. And one of the things that kind of came to my mind is everybody was talking about fear. Man, I've always been the type that either I care too much and then I don't care at all. And when you guys were talking about rejection, I remember that used to be a thing, and to the point to where I didn't care anymore. Mm-hmm. So, man, as I'm kind of going through it, man, and I just kind of wanted to touch on something that everyone was talking about. And the first thing that came to mind was FOMO. Like, I never had the fear of missing out. Like, if anything, man, I zeroed in on what I want, and I just keep going until I got it. And then once I got it, I was good. Like, I never worried about what else was out there in the options and stuff like that. So that's something that truly I think is the biggest thing that is just different for me, that I don't have that whole FOMO deal. So I'm actually really looking forward to this conversation, man. I think it's really powerful, and it's going to resonate with a lot of people.
If I could just add, like I mentioned earlier, nobody likes rejection. It doesn't feel good. But what I heard with the example, sometimes as guys, we build up this emotional shield, in the beginning stages of like a relationship or something like that. I remember I felt it when I was applying for jobs 2 years ago, wanted to change my career field. And I got rejected over and over and over again. It did not feel good. So it wasn't easy for me to use that emotional shield when you're really, truly emotionally invested into it. And I hear your example. I would encourage people to do what you talked about. Hit me, just walk up, to some women and, talk to them. If she's not into you, dude, keep going. Go to the next one. Try something different, But how about when you're in a committed relationship, a long-term relationship, and you have plans, you have visions for that relationship? You've been in it like 6 or 9 months, and you're ready for things to continue, and that person rejects you. That's a bigger hit right there. That's a blow right there, because you're all in, with that one. And those are the guys I typically see in my practice. When it's easy, when you don't know them and you're just trying to holler at somebody, and it doesn't matter what they do or say, I could swing the next one, and and that's cool. But what about when you're all in? And
Hey,
I hope that people are not devastated by that type of rejection, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
no, I wanted to. I also was chiming on the doc. Like, so that's actually something I experienced firsthand. And he's like absolutely correct. So with me, it, like the same thing I said. Like, I go by the notion, if you don't like me, something wrong with you. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So,
Yep.
and that's how I approach it.
And
But
that's a good, healthy thing to do.
yeah, but it's different when it's somebody you really care about. You know what I'm saying? It's a big difference when it's somebody that you want to share, that though, and you want to be like what Vic said, and be vulnerable with. And then, you know what I'm saying, you get rejected. You know what I mean? That does a lot. You know what I'm saying? It does a lot with that insecurity, which creates fear. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? That further perpetuates being in a state of fear, because you don't want to see that thing keep happening over and over. You don't want to feel that sting. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I felt that firsthand. I know exactly what he's talking about.
One thing I try to do, and I know a lot of people don't do this, right? And they kind of get mad at me for it. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I want to know why the rejection. But I want to know for me, so I could like kind of take it in as valuable information. I'm trying to get feedback at that point, because it's all experiment. I don't really care about the fact that you did it. I just want to know like why. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it me or is it you?
You want some closure.
Well, it's not necessarily closure. It's growth. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't say it's closure. Like, I don't need that to move forward. I would like that so I can be better, and I can be a better version. You know what I'm saying? Because if I said the wrong thing, did the wrong thing, didn't know a right thing, you know what I mean? Like, even in the interview process, if I'm going for a job and they're like, oh, well, at the right time, we don't think you're a good candidate. And I'm like, wow, what am I missing? What didn't I know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm asking, so they could be like, well, you didn't know this. And it could be a complete wash of why they're telling me whatever. You know what I mean? It could have been like, oh, you didn't have a culture fit or whatever. But I mean, there could be a nugget in there like, well, you didn't know this technology, or you didn't know this. Now I know, like, maybe I need to brush up on that for the next time, or brush up on this. And even in my younger days when I was out there, talking to a bunch of women, like, I would be like shocked that I would get this and be like, wow. And then like, but anybody I'm with be like, she said no, let's move on. I'm like, I just want to know why. But that nobody understood why I was even asking why. And that's like the engineering me, like, I want to know why it's broke. You know what I mean? So anybody else can chime in on their fears of rejection, but
so Vic, that's hilarious, right? So obviously we've known each other a long time. That's something I've almost tried to coach out of you. I'm like, yo, it doesn't matter. But here's why. Like, so when we think about this, like, so as somebody, I'm in HR, and I think of that's the exit interview. I don't really care at this point. Like, obviously I'll ask you, but I'm not going to go and change the direction of my program based on someone who's not going to be there. So that's always the point that I always noticed about it, because I'm the total opposite of it. Once somebody just says they're no longer going to be here, and there's someone who's actually been divorced, Like I never went back and was like, hey, what was it that went wrong? I was like, okay, you're out of here. Whoever the next target is and whoever that's going to be, I'm going to focus on making them happy. So I never do the whole exit interview thing, but I always noticed that was something that Vic, he was adamant about and he had to have. And I'm total opposite. I couldn't care less.
Chime in, because we've been having this conversation for years.
Right. Yeah, once you're no longer on this boat, man, I couldn't care if the sharks eat you. It don't matter to me.
And if I could share a quick story with that, because I hear you, and sometimes it's easy to move on depending on how involved you are. So about 25 years ago, when I was in grad school or so, I was dating this young woman about 4 or 5 months. I really liked her. And all of a sudden, I didn't know what ghosting meant. I didn't know people did that thing. It was like all of a sudden, I didn't hear anything. She stopped responding to my texts and emails. And then she sent me a little text. She said something about this is not going to work out. This is a long time ago. And I was like, damn, just like you mentioned, like, what did I do? What was it? I thought it was going well. It was still eating me up. 4 or 5 months later, I hadn't seen her. She was in law school. I was in the doc program. You know what I did? I rolled up at her apartment. Months later. And just to quickly summarize, had to ensure her, I'm not here to get back with you. I know you're surprised. I just want to ask you a quick question. I didn't hear anything back from you. I get it. You don't want to date. You don't want to be together. But can you tell me why? Because I just don't know what happened. I don't know when something took a turn. And guys, you know what she told me? She said, Harrison, I'm embarrassed. It wasn't you, but my old boyfriend contacted me and we started dating again. And I didn't want to disappoint you. And I didn't want to you to change your opinion of me thinking I was dating 2 guys at one time. And she apologized. I said, thank you. That's all that I needed. So I've learned to practice what I preach with my clients. And sometimes you have to be bold and courageous. Like Vic, I just needed to know something. I needed closure, with that. And it had nothing to do with me, because that was affecting me asking other young ladies out or hanging out with friends. And I just needed to know. So if that is important to you, I would encourage you to find out. Now, I had invested a lot of time, energy, and money, and I was broke in grad school, and I just needed to know. But I hear you, Mo Better. If it's time to move on, it's like playing in sports. That helps us guys sometimes when things don't go your way in sports. You don't give up. You just keep going for what you want. That may not have been the play for you to get the points that you want, but there's another play, and the game is not over. So that was the point I wanted to make.
Right. So, Doc, point well taken. And for me, and that was always kind of been my pushback to Vic was there's a good chance this has nothing to do with you. They just caught a better deal for them.
Yes.
And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't plan on batting 1,000. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take some L's. That's fine. But I move on. I move on to the next at bat. And for the most part, all of us, are athletes or have been at some point. So that's a kind of analogy that kind of works for us. Man, move on to the next at bat. You kind of got to have a short memory, but I understand how it could be a little harder in certain scenarios if it's somebody that you were totally invested in. But for me, man, I'm overly loyal, and then once I figure out that person's no longer on my team, I move on. It's not that they're an opponent; it's just that they're just an outsider at that point, and I leave it there. But I also have to understand that everybody's not wired the same way that I am.
Whatever works for you.
So how do y'all deal with, because there's rejection within a relationship as well, not a rejection that stops.
I don't even want to talk about it though.
Why not?
I don't even want to talk about that. I don't want to. I mean, we could, but I'm just saying I don't want to talk about it. But we could talk about it.
Nothing's off limits, man. Nothing's off limits.
So I mean, within a relationship, right? And it could be inside a friendship. We can go friendship, relationship, whatever. You know what I mean? Because there's been times where we all dealt with that. I probably dealt with it from each one of you guys, where I'd be like, where y'all rejected me and made me feel a certain type of way. You know what I'm saying? But so how do I deal with that? It's really just a swallow your pride moment when you value the relationship. I'm not, my relationship with women, I'm going outside. If like if you rejected me in the crib, I'm going outside, or we'll sit down and talk about it. But you know what? I don't necessarily talk about the rejection I felt from my peers, my friends.
Just
You know
social
what I'm saying?
relationships.
We kind of we I mean, but my close friends, like you know what I'm saying, like we kind of just wait it out and be like, we here now. You know what I'm saying? But I think we probably should, and I think we have started to like come around about how we felt about certain things, but not all the time. I know. Me and Big Mike have that kind of relationship, like where we'll feel like, but even that would take time. Like time would pass, and then he'd be like, you know what you did like 15 years ago. You know what I'm saying? That hurt me. But it's 15 years later, and but I know exactly what he's talking about. Like, yeah, I did feel that shift. You know what I'm saying? Blah 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 blah. And we could talk about it then later. But we still act in the relationship goes on, and we just deal with that hurt, and we stay in that. You know what I mean? But I think it's highly unhealthy, and we should probably learn amongst ourselves to handle these while we're feeling these emotions.
To
You know what I'm
resolve
saying?
it.
I don't think we had that problem with women because I think we're a little different how we treat women. But how we treat each other, you know what I mean? Like like our relationship, our bonds, or whatever. Because most of us been together since diapers or whatever kind of brought us together. It's like we probably need to address certain feelings way sooner to be healthier down the road. You know what I mean? So I mean, you can somebody else can chime in and see how they
Yeah.
feel about whatever.
Well, I guess I'm asking. So Henry, question is it? I mean, is he touching on those type of relationships, or is he talking about when you put your hand on a lap and you try to slide down and you get that? You know what I'm saying? You get that closed leg real fast. You know, is that which rejection
Oh yeah,
and
it could be
relationship
that.
is he talking
We're
about?
definitely talking about within relationships, like with your significant other. But yeah, that's one form. But even like just rejection on things that you feel like, or like the direction you feel like the family should move in, or even hypothetically, I know Kev back in the day wanted his significant other to do something business wise, but if hypothetically she were to reject that notion, even though you felt it was best for her or best for the family, like how do you deal with that kind of stuff?
So let me first go back to what Mo Better was saying because I was trying to chime in there, but then you jumped in. So I just wanted to let you, say what you were gonna say. But I agree with Mo Better, but for a different reason as far as what I mean, not really caring about the reasons why stuff happened. And the reasons why I don't really care is because what didn't work for you doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the next person. You know what I mean? Maybe just we just wasn't compatible. Maybe things just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So maybe who I am is enough for the next person that I'm with. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't have to worry about anything that didn't work with me and you. Maybe me and you was just for the moment. You know what I mean? Sometimes relationships are just for seasons. So that's the approach that I take. And I look for it like I don't really worry about none of that. Okay, it didn't work. Cool. You know what I mean? It might hurt for a little bit, might take me a little bit, a little while for me to get back on my feet, emotionally, but you know what I mean? I'm not looking for reasons. Reasons don't really matter in this right here. For me, it's just like, you know what? Maybe me and her just wasn't a good fit. Let me go to the next one. The next one might, love me for me.
Yeah, I like to think of some of those rejections as signs from the universe that you're on the wrong track. That's the wrong direction. That's the wrong path. And that it's a course correction. Because imagine, let's just stick with the ladies for a while, the romantic relationships. You continued with those relationships with those women who rejected you early on. Then something happened. She said, okay, I give you a try, and you back in there. The same stuff happens. That relationship is never going to work out. So I like to think of it, tell me early. So I don't continue doing what I was doing to see a certain outcome with that. Now, what I also heard from Vic, was about social relationships and guys, and how to handle some conflict, when it is a true friend, not just a buddy, not just somebody, a friend of a friend, and you guys may hang out every now and then. It's when that relationship, that friendship really matters. And I think sometimes with some guys, we haven't been trained or socialized how to engage those type of friendships, in a close, intimate manner, so where we can feel comfortable sharing with a friend who happens to be a guy, hey, dude, when that happened that last time, I just want to let you know, I really didn't like that. I didn't like what you did, or you could have done this a little bit differently, to show them you still care about the friendship, but I got some expectations, and what you did sort of put a little damper, chipped away at the friendship and what I thought of you,
Well, I
and
know one of
I'm
the
glad to hear
things,
that just finally Vic was saying he wants to resolve it.
one of the things, and I guess this goes back to fear. One of my biggest fears in life is losing Vic, and how we were raised, how the relationship formed. We're kind of like two swords, like sharpening each other, and weakness on any level, is frowned upon from both of us, by both of us. And, to not to admit hurt, but in the heat of the moment, when emotions are high, Vic is a bull. And, I'm no pushover either. So sometimes I guess not sometimes, I guess what we've learned was that in order to avoid a blow up, and in order to avoid, saying something that, ultimately might dismantle us, it's better to let time take its toll.
Or that confrontation, you guys can resolve it and it can strengthen the bond that you have. That's the alternative, as opposed to sweeping it under the rug.
And I'm not necessarily, not, that's the thing. It wouldn't necessarily be swept under the rug. We both, it's apparent what had happened.
It would be the elephant in the room, and we would just be riding the elephant.
You know what I'm saying? We gonna ride the elephant. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then,
So-
it's comforting knowing that both of us can be uncomfortable and still be together, and deal with other things. And, maybe we find a bond in that.
How do you guys apologize to your guy friends? That's what I want to know.
Emotionally with tears.
We bring a bottle.
Don't get it twisted. We've definitely cried to each other before. We've definitely held each other.
I didn't think you hadn't. But how do you apologize to a guy friend?
I don't think I ever have. I feel like I'm always of the path Kev was referring to, with just after a certain amount of time, you just kind of come back and it's good. Like,
Yep.
I can't say I've ever confronted it head on.
Typical. Yep.
Even when it probably was in both of our best interests to do so.
I mean, when me and Vic lived in the same area, our conflict resolution was like knuckling up. Like it wasn't really I'm sorry. It wasn't really you hurt me. It was like, we can fight. And that was it for like years. I mean, years. Every time we saw each other, if you said something wrong, it was just like, all right, it's time to fight. And we would just not, it didn't matter. We'd be in the mall, we'd go to the bathroom, you know what I mean? It could be anywhere on the street, it didn't matter. We would just knuckle up, you know what I mean? That was just our barbaric way of saying, okay, look, I disagree with what you're saying. What you said hurt me. So now we just need to go ahead and challenge each other to a duel. And that's how we did a long time ago. And then when we kind of just moved to different areas and we were in different spaces, like, it was like I was at, when we were in person, he was more at advantage because he was always a more stockier guy than I was, you know what I mean? But I just was never afraid. Wasn't no scaredy cat of me. So I was willing to knuckle up at any time for no reason, win, lose, or draw. But when we was in a different state, it was like, okay, I'm good with the wordplay, so I'll work on you with psychological warfare all day. So we be in two different states, and I'm just okay. You want to do that, and I'll just
Okay.
jabbing a little bit. And now it's like for after I do the little psychological warfare, he be in his feelings. So he might not talk to me for a day, two, a week, something like that, and then you know what I mean. We be right back like ain't nothing happened.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. It's not
Typical.
above us to address that and be able to say, hey, look, man, you went a little too far. I didn't
Okay.
like that. You know
Okay.
what I mean? I didn't like it. So, we've come a long way from when we were younger and we just knuckling up and,
I hope
what I
so.
mean? I still now, do the psychological warfare if I have to, because you know what I mean? Sometimes he be just all, charging bull. And I'm like, dog, you can't charge over the phone, or you can't, you can't charge over text. So, you know what I mean? I'm gonna win this one every time. It's a psychological warfare. I'm gonna win every time. But just being able to have that communication. I mean, we've been friends for a long, long time. So now it's just like
I can tell.
being vulnerable. It's not a thing. You know what I mean? That we're necessarily worried about. But I do miss the knuckling up.
I think with all men, there's a certain line that we just don't cross unless we know that we'll never tend to speak again. You know what I'm saying? Or we tend to go there. It's a certain line that we know that we can't come back from. I
Gotcha.
think, but other than that, I have had conversations, and I know it's hard for men to to express their feelings. You know what I'm saying? To say like, hey man, that did hurt me. You know what I'm saying? It's really hard for us to do it. So most of us do it over alcohol, you know what I'm saying? Or we do it over, you know what I'm saying, whatever our vice is or whatever. But it's like what I found now in my age now and where I'm at is like, you know what I mean? That apology is more for you than it is for them. You know what I'm saying? To get that off your chest, you know what I'm saying? To get it off your mind, to say how you felt, you know what I mean? That's really for you. That's your release. If they take it or they don't, that's on
Yep.
them.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But once you let it go, it's not on you no more. It's released. You know what I'm saying? And you can go on and you know what I'm saying and keep building. And it's up to them if they want to stay stuck there.
I agree.
So there's something I want to go into the next question because we've mentioned it a few times, and I think we've all dealt with it. But it's the fair change. Um, I know some of us have made some drastic pivots. You know what I'm saying, in our life, whether it be location change, career change, woman change, late babies, whatever. You know what I'm saying. So let's talk about that a little bit. And as far as fears change, right? So I know moving to Georgia, I wasn't necessarily scared. Um, Man, it was like how I deal with a lot of fear though is go straight forward, go at it. You know what I mean? So when it was time to make a change, like my biological father died, and it was just like, man, this city sucks. I'm gone. Somebody opened the door for me and was just like, my stepdad opened the door, was like, you come down here, and I was like, bet. I took it first flight out, you know what I mean, and been down here ever since. So I know that was a huge thing because I already had children, and I was really scared about what kind of father I would be long distance.
Mm.
But in my head, I had a plan early, like, man, I'm gonna move down, get on my feet, I'm gonna get my kids. Like, you know what I'm saying? They coming down with me. And sure enough, within a year's time, after a year I moved down here, had my kids, then they mom moved down, then my mom moved down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a wave of, well, he made it, I guess we all can make it, you know what I'm saying? And we're gone. So that's kind of how I dealt with that little bit. That fair change I had. I never really changed careers. I always had the same goal, same mind. But some of y'all had to change how y'all got money. And that's, that when you was on such a strong path going one way, let's talk about how y'all dealt with that fear.
Yeah, I know I can speak on that. As Kev knows, I was actually doing a med track. So I have a biology degree, and we met as I was doing a post back, and I was working full time while I was doing that. but I always kind of or in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to eventually go into business. So the opportunity arose to open a bakery. So I kind of dropped that whole thing, and it was a huge pivot. And I even credit Kev for he was one of our first customers, so he definitely helped, guide me through that and support as well. But yeah, it's definitely, there was a lot of fear. One, we talk about the fear as Black men of being embarrassed. So, starting a business, you put yourself out, like,
it's a risk.
Yeah, it's a huge risk. Like for everyone to see, everybody can comment. You got Yelp, so people who you never seen or can't even recall can leave a review. So like you're literally your most vulnerable self. So and me being somebody who isn't an extrovert or anything, so like that was a huge pivot for me personally. But this was one of the few times that I did kind of just take it head on and just kind of just roll with the punches. So I will say that strategy does work if you can muster up the courage to do it, and which isn't easy. But yeah, it was definitely something that I have experience with. But I could say the advice I can give people is in that particular sense is to just kind of think about the end goal and kind of set your fears aside to kind of reach it.
Anybody else want to chime in on that? Because we've all dealt with that career change. Well, I know everybody else on the panel has.
It's crazy. So like career wise, like I never had a fear. To me, it's you just do it. It never was an issue. I think my fear was after I made the move career wise, and I made acquired like a savings and had money that was sitting and did a certain thing. I had a fear because I came from not having a whole lot. And I had a fear of letting it go, thinking that I'd never get it again. You know what I'm saying? And so like I missed a lot of opportunities business wise. Like when everything was collapsing, they had houses over here for like 40,000-50,000 that I could have bought. That's going for 300,000 now. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I was like kicking myself like, damn, I missed opportunity because I was fearful and I wasn't thinking with the mindset that, that the money's gonna come back. I was thinking if I lose this, I'll never get it again because I never had it. You know what I mean? So like fear wise is not, it's like different things. Like I'll take the chance and take the job, but it's after I get the job, what I do with the resources that's the issue for me.
No, that's real. That's definitely real. Anybody else want to chime in?
No, man, I think that was actually an amazing point. As somebody who, for the most part, man, I've kind of been stable, but the reason that is the case because growing up, I wasn't. Like I remember there was a time in my life, man, growing up, I moved every year. So once I got to the point to where I was actually in control of my own situation, I was always the go-to for the most part, anybody in my circle, family or friends. But one of the things that was most important was being stable and not in where Hitz was talking about taking that opportunity to be risky. I'm one of the most risk adverse people you'll ever find. I probably should have been a millionaire 5 times over because I have paralysis by analysis. There's so many times I should have done stuff, but I haven't because I always figured I didn't have that golden parachute or I didn't have the safety net that I felt other people had. Mm-hmm. So that's something I definitely think I'm getting to the point now to where I think I can make those changes and get what I feel I left behind or I left on the table.
Somebody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily have the fear of the change when it came to my career. Like for me, the biggest fear for me was the fear of staying in my career because I was a chef by trade for a lot of years, man. I was coming up in the chefhood when the Master Chef and all that other stuff was out, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be the biggest chef ever. And then as I got bigger and bigger and deeper into the profession, I realized how miserable these people were. It's like, the 2 and 3 divorces, they're working, nights, weekends, holidays, they're never around their kids or their family. And it's just like, you're working ridiculously long hours on your feet all day. And it was just like, so for me in my head, it was always like, okay, I love this. This is my form of art. This is how I express myself. So I was always thinking about, where's the next shift? You know what I mean? Where's the transition? So how can I transition into the next thing? And, I was transitioning into different, sides of business and things like that. And what ended up happening is I'm like, I love food. I have a passion for food. So let me just pivot into something that has something to do with food. And, so the change in the career wasn't so much the fear. It was the fear of staying in that career and not being able to have the type of family environment that I wanted to have. And that was the biggest thing for me is like, I come from a big family. Family is the most important thing to me. And you know what I mean? To me, it's like if you're my friend and you reach the family level, like that's a huge achievement. Like if my kids are calling you uncle, like that's crazy because not everybody can get to that next level. That's like Super Saiyan. So you get to that level and my kids is calling you uncle, it's a whole different thing. So for me, like I just wanted to make sure that I was able to be present, and not just be here for my kids, but be present with my kids in those moments. So
Amen.
I wanted to have that shift, you know what I mean, in the career because I just couldn't be one of those people who was just gonna be divorcing and for because you're working too much or you know what I mean, my back and have all these issues and timing and stuff, and you're working these holidays just to create this meal. And it's wonderful because it's your way of expressing yourself and it's an art, but at the same time, is it worth that? Is it worth the sacrifice? Is it worth losing what you have in order to win over here? And I deal with that all the time. I go back and forth, like, some wins are actually losses. So I was willing to lose that in order to win.
So I want to go to the next point, and this is really again why I like really reached out to you to kind of talk to me on this, right? And one thing I've been kind of dealing with, and I think Dr. Harrison kind of touched on it, and Big Mike touched on it a little bit. Self-sabotage, fear of success, is what sparked this whole conversation about fear in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been blessed to like actually have an opportunity where I can really like make out, but I'm like, when I look at everything I got to do for it, oh, I'm scared now. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, man, like so like when I came to your shop and I sat there and waited for you for a minute because I really wanted to have a conversation with you about success and how you was able to manage those goals and how you was able to like just to keep going and moving forward and not being afraid of it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sitting at this pinnacle right now where it's like I could really take off to the next level and set things up the way I need them to be set up. And this is this is without going to the NFL type. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what I like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you get over that fear of being everything you're supposed to be and actually becoming that? You know what I mean? I want everybody kind of, chip in and chime away because it's something I've always wanted for myself. Like, I know I'm supposed to be this guy. And when the opportunity comes to be that guy, I'm looking at it like, are you scared? You gonna do it? Like, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like this huge, like Dr. Harrison said, anxiety of whatever comes over you. Like, so how do you necessarily attack that and become that of what you need to be?
Well, can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
To Vic, is it a situation where you feel like you don't deserve it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because of success, you create the success and you have the opportunity, but you don't deserve to be there. Is it something like that's what you're saying?
That's a part of it. It's do I deserve it? Can I do it?
Is it so foreign to you that you don't know what to expect?
No, it's I'm sitting at the door. right? So it's more so like, do I deserve to walk through the door? If I walk through the door, can I stay on the other side? Am I going to get kicked back out? Like, you know what I mean? And what's wild about it is it's actually a relief to think about getting kicked back out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm actually okay with standing at the door and being like, well, I made it to the door. Let me, you know what I mean? It's kind of like I made it to the practice team, so you know what I mean. But it's nowhere close to that Hall of Fame career that I probably could have had if I would have just did I don't know what.
Yeah.
So an analogy that just came up in my head, it's like that NFL football player. You mentioned football. I like football. And that team, they work so hard through the season and the playoffs, and they work their butts off, and they're all battered up, and they get to the Super Bowl and they're scared. I would ask them the same thing I would have asked you. What's so scary about it? You've been working for this. You know what to expect.
But you don't know what to expect. You don't know what you've been working for. You just know that's what you wanted. You don't know what it actually took
Gotcha.
to be there, to stay there. You just.
So I'll say I know a lot of it can be imposter syndrome, where you feel you don't have the capability to take things to the next level. But I'll say I read the Will Smith biography earlier in the year. And one thing he said kind of stuck with me. He said anytime he thinks about a decision that causes fear, he knows it's the right direction to go. So what you do is if a decision brings fear about, you attack it directly because your mind is telling you this is the direction that big things are about to happen. So it's natural to feel that fear, and it should be your North Star. Like when you see something and it's a big decision, and it's success is like the biggest successes are always on the other side of that fear. So just based on that, I wouldn't go the opposite direction. Like you want to run straight through that. And again, you always feel like you don't have what it takes to do it. But if you look at anybody who's had major success, even small success, we're all human, and there's nothing that they know, or there's no information that they have access to that you don't also have access to. And just always take the first step, no matter if it's a marathon, everything starts with a step. And as long as you're moving in that direction, however, quickly or slowly, always go in that direction. Because again, like once you see a decision that brings about fear, that lets you know, like right then and there, okay, this is a direction that's going to bring me what I want.
Yeah, I've been through a different scenario or different way to look at it too. Like I felt like God blessed me with the success, but if I don't continue to do the right thing all the time, then it's gonna be taken away from me. You know what I'm saying? And that's a fear in itself. And or like the same thing. Like I was lucky to get here, but you know what I mean. Soon the luck is gonna run out. You know what I'm saying? Then I'm gonna be back bad. You know what I'm saying? So like that kind of correlates to the football when you get to the Super Bowl, it's so much pressure because like every play could be the last play of the season. You know what I'm saying? Or this play could ruin your chances. And so you got that anxiety and that fear, you know what I mean? Even if that's like in a job or in a relationship, you know what I mean? You got this enormous amount of pressure. Like, if I fail, I'm gonna have to start all over. You know what I'm saying? I got to go back to the regular season, then back to the playoffs, and it might not be the same. Like, I mean, the same players might not play the same, or it might not rain that day. And they can't run the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like the luck is not gonna be there for me. And you know what I'm saying? And that's what a lot of my fears. You know what I mean? That's like the places of the fears where it come from.
And what I can finally add to that,
Go ahead.
is that, oh, I'm sorry. I encourage
No, go ahead.
people.
Go ahead.
I encourage people sometimes, and I practice what I preach. say to yourself, I deserve this. Confront that fear. The hurdles are in our mind, and we can make it tough for ourselves. That's that sabotage piece. But I like to convince people, you deserve it. You deserve to be at the Super Bowl. You worked hard. You deserve that opportunity. You put yourself in the right place. You trained for it. You got the credentials that you needed. Your personality. People opened the door for you. You deserve to walk through it. You made it to a spot, like someone said. You lucky that you made it there. Now convince yourself that this is what was meant for you. That path. And I like to talk about the universe, and it created for you. It put you there. It's a reward, is what I tell people. I even tell myself. So that's what I wanted to add to that. Sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's completely fine. That's great. But I was going to say, like, my fear is not of the success. My fear is more of the what I have to give up, like the sacrifices I have to make to get there. Because oftentimes, you know what I mean, I get job offers and they're just grandiose, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And they're like 75% travel. You have to be willing to work your nights. You have to be willing to work weekends. You have to be flexible. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to raise a family, and I need to be present in my children's life. Like, that's the most important thing to me. So when I
Priorities.
weigh risk and rewards, you know what I mean? I'm like, is more money and more achievements really worth the time away from my family, or worth the time, you know what I mean, that I'm gonna miss, certain aspects? Like, I got an 11-month-old son. Am I gonna miss him take his first steps? Am I gonna miss him say, start talking? And those type of things are the things that I'm more fearful of, is not being able to be around in those moments that are most important, and under the guise of, oh, I'm trying to take care of my family, or I'm trying to do the best that I can, financially. And that's just so that's a space where I never want to be
So
in.
so let me
So
push
that's what
back a
I
little bit
fear.
on that. Let me push back though, right? So it sounds like you're cheating yourself of all of who you might become, right? And I think that's what I fear the most, is of cheating myself of everything, not getting all my potential out. You know what I mean? It's kind of like them talents things that, when I go see God and he's like, I gave you these talents. Did you use them all? You know what I'm saying? What you do with it? And what it sounds like you're doing is you're burying them instead of maximizing all the talents he gave you. And I want to maximize all the talents I gave. I'm just, like I said, I'm just scared to do it.
But that's
But
that's the
I could be
opposite
wrong
of what I'm
though.
saying. That's the
Yeah.
opposite of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I don't prioritize money or achievement over the things that matter most to me. Now, the gifts that God gave me, I give back willingly. And it's one of those things where, like, one of the gifts that God gave me is the gift of culinary arts, man. I am a beast when it comes to the kitchen. You know what I mean? I move mountains with food. So, and I oftentimes get people who want me to cater and stuff for them. And I've catered plenty parties, 100, 200, 300, 400. And most of them are for like family or close friends or things like that. And I never charge. Like, I just kind of, yo, you get the food, you get the stuff, man, I'll put the stuff together. And how I use the gifts that God gave me, and as I give back, you know what I mean? I use those gifts that he gave me to give back to the community, give back to people I care about. So I'm using those gifts. I'm just not using them for personal gain. I'm using them in a different way to where it still makes me feel good. And I'm still using my art, but I'm still able to do the things that I care about and be here for my family. Like, of course, everybody needs money to live. You gotta be able to do what you need to do to survive and take care of your family. However, like, the money isn't the goal for me. You know what I mean? The relationship is the goal. You know what I mean? The being present with my family is the goal. You know what I mean? So that's what I work on, man. I'm not really necessarily worried about that. But for me, it's also like, I could always pivot. If I ever time I needed the money, the opportunities are here. They're always here, so I can do what I need to do. But I would rather be in the moments right now, especially with my
I'm
11-month
so
old here,
I'm not
be in
saying
those
it's a
moments.
money thing. It's not necessarily about money. It's just about being all of you. It's not money.
And what I'm saying is, I'm being all of me. in all these different phases of my life. You know what I mean? I'm able to spread me over these pieces of my life and still be present in the moments that I'm able to be present. So what I'm saying is the opportunities come with more money and they come with more accolades. That's fine. And those opportunities are always, I mean, maybe they won't always be there, but they're there. I get calls every day. But I choose what makes more sense right now in my life.
Anybody else want to chime in?
What's your ideal? Like, because the way you mention these opportunities, I feel like one part of you wants to take them. So what would be the best opportunity for you?
I mean, the best opportunity for me would probably be something where I didn't have 75% travel, or I didn't have to be away from my family, you know what I mean, nights, weekends, and holidays, you know what I mean, and have to run that slave ship. So if I can do the type of stuff that I like to do and the stuff that makes me happy and still be here for my family and push forward, like that's the opportunity that I would take. And I'm always open to those opportunities. Like, you know what I mean? I'm seeking those opportunities. But um especially right now, like right now I work from home, so I have, like, it's the best setup for me for right now, this stage in my life with, you know, the little one at home. But you know what I mean, if I had to go to an office, not having to travel or not having to have so much of a time commitment that it takes me away from my family, I think that would be the best setup. However, um I'm not willing to choose that over my family.
Sounds like it's all about balance, and balance looks different to all of us.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know if Mo Better wanted to chime in or hit me.
Yeah, so I think Doc hit it perfectly. That was actually going to be my response. Was it's about balance, man. My end goal is balance. It's somebody who, man, I chased career very early, and that's what I was going for. I was going for achievement, and I was going for the validation, man. Man, I ran through a family, ran through a whole marriage trying to do so, and then I realized it wasn't that important.
Mm.
So with that being said, man, I realized that kind of like Leifer said, man, I want to be present for my family, but I also want to be able to provide for them, and I want to be able to do what I want to do in my free time. So my end goal is balance.
Yo, yeah, balance. Yo, I think, man, honestly, it's something that we didn't mention, man. I think for every man, I know for me, one of the biggest fears that I have is getting my ass kicked in front of my kids. You know what I'm saying? Like that is like the biggest fear. And, yo, it drives me. Like I got a whole gym based off of me not getting my ass kicked in front of my kids. You know what I'm saying? So like, so the point I'm trying to make is like sometimes you got a lot of fears to drive you, you know what I'm saying, and push you, you know what I'm saying, for your success.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't, we can't be prisoners of it, you know what I mean? Because it's natural. It's not like we never gonna have it. It's, you know what I mean, bravery is what you do while you're afraid. You know what I'm saying? Not the absence of fear. So I think the biggest point, man, is just make sure that we take that fear and use it for good. You know what I'm saying? Let it drive us to be successful.
I want to go back to the balance though, right? And I'm gonna ask you, like, so how do you handle your affairs? Is it balance or is it incorporation? Do you get everybody involved to cause balance, or how do you manage? Because I mean, you just dropped a new baby too, so
Yeah. So again, like Dr. Harrison said, balance looks different to different people. Um, at the stage I'm in business, I do have to be present a lot in our business. So to your point, I bring my kids here to the shop a lot. So we try to get everybody involved. But what I'm trying to work on, or work towards rather, is, a different part of balance where I can just be present, at where my kids are, as opposed to, having to bring them here. So more to Leifer's point. But yeah, so there's definitely steps to get there, particularly when you're in a retail space. So, and that's what drives me to push forward and grow the company to the point where I don't have to make all the decisions and be here all the time. So luckily, after it's been 5-6 years, we've been able to kind of get to that point. So we're about to open our second location. So with that, I'm trying to step back a lot. But yeah, so to get anything worth having, it does take a lot of sacrifice, and there will be times where you may not be able to be with your kids all the time or as much as you want to be. But as long as, in my opinion, you're doing what you can, the best you can to strike that balance. And there's a balance of thinking of the future and trying to make sure everybody's set, not just for today, but for 10 years down the road, but also not missing out on 10 years of family time, trying to build that future. So that's what, us as men, professionals, we fight those battles all the time. And I'm definitely fighting them myself. But I am trying to, steer more towards the being more present in everything I do and the decisions that we make with the company.
Real talk.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I like to just piggyback on that real quick because, you know, I say that presentness, but I don't mean it is in, being there all the time. Just like in the moments that you're able to be there, just making sure that you're not just there, like you're present in the moment. You're able to listen to what's going on in their day if they're old enough to talk about it. Because I got a 15-year-old and I got an 11-month-year-old. So, when my daughter comes home from school, if I'm home, she likes to talk about what's happened in her day, how things are going on, what things went bad, what this little guy friend she has did to her today. And, just being there to listen, you know what I mean? And then, just being present in the moments that you're there. Of course, we're not going to be able to be there for every moment. We're not going to be able to be there all the time. It's working parents. But when you're there, make sure you're there.
I think though, Henry made a good point though, as far as he has his kids there, and that's always been my plan to conquer a busy schedule is to have everybody incorporated into the busy schedule. You know what I mean? So have them doing what you do, like what I'm saying. If whatever if you make cupcakes, then the kids know how to be in the bakery, like what I'm saying. If you make apps, then your wife know how to do the graphics. You know what I'm saying. If you make cuisine, then what I'm saying, whoever you're around, your homeboys know how to sell the plates. And I think that's the perfect thing I've always had in mind, is always incorporating the whole team and making money with the team. And that way we can enjoy each other and enjoy the money. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the ultimate goal of balance. Everything never works. Everything don't work out that way. You know what I mean? But that's kind of always been my mind frame of a plan of when you're big, or when you get on the other side of that door, this is what happens on the other side of that door. Everybody got to come. So, I'm gonna go into the summary. I only like to keep you guys for an hour. I know everybody, on their ding. But one point that just kept coming up, and there's so many ways you can say this thing, but just keep moving forward. When you're scared of something, move through it, move at it, move towards it. Another point that came up was get space and communicate. You know what I mean? So when we have conflict times or whatever, fear of resolution, or however, I can't remember the point we was talking to, but my point, I wrote down: get space and communicate. One thing Dr. Harrison said that kind of touch with me is words of affirmation when you get there. Convince yourself that, you know what I mean, you deserve it.
You damn right.
You know what I'm saying? So, move that way and convince yourself, I need this. This is for me, and do everything you got to do to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So speak to yourself, look in the mirror and be like, this is mine and whatever. I don't necessarily do that. You know what I'm saying? But I guess that's what it is at this point. Anybody got anything else to say on what we talked about today?
Nah, I just want to shout out the ticker below, man, the prototype dad ticker. And you know what I'm saying? Shout that out real quick, man. And whoever asked that question on YouTube, man, we appreciate y'all, man. You know what I'm saying? I seen it bubble up, man. You're doing your thing, son. You're doing your thing.
Man, we trying out here. Shout out to Cigar Society for being our first sponsor. We're gonna start, selling cigars. We're gonna start, we're gonna get the website up, the Prototype Dad website. We're gonna sell cigars, just man stuff. You know what I'm saying? Soaps, lotions, whatever for us. Beard oils. So we're about to have a whole market going. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Lee for getting us worldwide on every platform. You know what I'm saying? Shout out for Mo for helping out with the questions. Shout out for Dr. Harrison for kind of helping us form, keep us in line about how far we can go inbounds and out of bounds or whatever, and bringing some actual, knowledge so we don't get out of hand and we're not just sitting here talking about theories and not getting resolutions. You know what I'm saying? So this is a solution-based platform, and, we're here to help each other and help men. So
I just want to thank you guys for inviting me. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even prepare or anything. I had a long day at work, but this has been great. You guys are much more evolved than a lot of the other brothers who I talked to. So this has been great just to see you guys interact with each other, put an emphasis on relationships. Just to hear guys talk about that, I really enjoyed today. So thank you for inviting me. I would like to extend an offer to you guys to come on my show if you want to. I do Two Therapists on a Microphone with Dr. Aisha Dickerson, and we talk about social issues, mental health, emotional issues, relationships, and we have a new component where we're going to invite someone to the show like Dr. Laura and talk about some situation or predicament that they're in, and we're going to listen and offer some type of advice. And you can do it the same format. You can turn off your camera if you want to. So I just want to extend an offer to you guys because I really enjoyed appearing on your show.
What's the info for your show?
The info
is Two Therapists in the Mic.
Two therapists in the mic. Okay.
Yeah, Two Therapists on a Microphone, and the little it's 2TM show.
Okay.
The hashtag 2TM
They worldwide
show
too. They got a lot more followers than we got right now.
I don't know.
Well, we on the way.
We enjoy it, but we cater to the same audience that you guys, I believe, are catering to, and I would love for you guys to continue some of these conversations or the topics that you brought up, and you can have two trained therapists, talk to you about it. We can keep your confidentiality if that's what you want. That's no problem. But I just want to extend that offer to you guys.
We appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll accept, and we'll all take our turns and jumping on, or we might just bombard you, and all of us might jump on. So, but yeah, man, appreciate everybody, and go ahead and enjoy your evening. That's Prototype Dad.
Peace,